When I started reviewing cars on YouTube, one of the first cars that I featured was the Honda BRV. Since then, there's been a ton of options that came out in its price segment. In this video, we find out if the Honda BRV V CVT can still hold up. Let's do this. Hello guys, I'm Reagan and welcome back to another car review. If you're new to my channel, I want you to click that subscribe button for your regular dose of Philippine automotive content. If you're my subscriber already, well, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But first, click that like button. Also, special thanks to Honda Cars Philippines for lending me the Honda BRV V CVT to do this review. The second generation Honda BRV has already been launched in Indonesia late last year, but we still don't get any word as to when we will get that MPV here in the Philippines, if ever we will. Don't worry, we will. For the meantime, however, let us revisit the first generation Honda BRV, which I got to drive for an entire week. Now, I got to get a better understanding of its driving performance, especially since now I was able to also drive its other rugged MPV contenders like the Suzuki XL7 and the Mitsubishi Xpander Cross. Now, price-wise, this top-spec Honda BRV V CVT retails for 1,168,000 Philippine pesos, which puts it at the same price segment as the other rugged-looking MPVs in the category. The Honda BRV holds its own in the rugged SUV department because it has the looks to back it up. It shares the same front mug with the larger CRV, well, at least before the CRV's facelift. It has this distinctive front grille here that is all garnished in chrome, plus it has a front skid plate to further enhance its rugged look. Now, this top-spec Honda BRV V gets LED DRLs here, although the headlights and the fog lights are still halogen. Now, I must admit, guys, that this is a good-looking MPV, although it's a bit unassuming and easily blends into the crowd. It doesn't scream, "Look at me," like the Mitsubishi Xpander, although it's not as subdued as the Suzuki Ertiga. The side profile of the Honda BRV eerily looks like a Subaru XV. Now, it must have been the aggressive roof rails here or even the plastic claddings found on the wheel wells. However, this Honda BRV gets larger windows here, typical of an MPV, and it also has larger rear doors which swing out almost 90 degrees to help people get in and out of this vehicle. Now, speaking of getting in and out of the car, well, the BRV is also equipped with a one-touch lever here on the second row, making it easy to tumble forward so that the people in the third row can have an easy time getting in and out of the BRV. Now, this top-spec Honda BRV V gets power folding side mirrors with LED turn signals, and it also has 16-inch alloy wheels that are wrapped in 60 series tires. Now, behind these wheels, well, we get mechanical bits that are typical of an MPV. It gets ventilated disc brakes up front, but only drum brakes at the back. Now, for the suspension, we have a MacPherson setup in the front and a torsion beam at the back. However, the ground clearance of the BRV is pretty tall because it's 201 millimeters, which is, yes, decent enough for a small SUV. The rear end of the Honda BRV is signature Honda with its LED taillights here and that center reflector strip right there, well, in the middle. Now we also get a rear skid plate here, which helps to complement the one found in front. Now when you pop open the manual liftgate of the BRV, you'll first notice that the trunk lip is on the low side. It's just a little bit taller than my knee, so that means loading heavier items would be easy in the BRV. Now as for the absolute cargo space, well, as you can see, we can easily put a medium-sized luggage here because we get around 223 liters of trunk capacity. Now if you need more space than that, well, the third row seats can go away by folding it down like that and tumbling it forward, as you can see, which will now expand your space to 470 liters of cargo space. Now that's good enough for 1, 2 and a half, and a 3 medium-sized luggage. Now that's not really the class leader, guys, but it is still more than adequate. Oh yeah, and by the way, this manual liftgate right here, it's super light. See? It's super light. Honda proudly boasts that their Honda BRV is the most powerful in its class, and that would be true, guys, if that class only consisted of Japanese MPVs. You see, there are now other 7-seater options in the category that have a bit more power, like the Kaichen CX-70. However, the BRV will still hold its own in the power department because what we have here is a 1.5-liter inline-4 gasoline motor that puts out 118 horsepower and 145 Newton-meters of torque. Now, this is also equipped with a CVT transmission, which helps conserve on its fuel consumption. Now, speaking of fuel economy, well, the BRV also returned to me some pretty decent fuel economy figures. You see, on a city run, I was able to get 10.3 kilometers per liter, and on a highway run, I was able to get 19.1 kilometers per liter. Now, I didn't get the 22 kilometers per liter, that's the published highway economy rate from Honda Cars Philippines, but it is pretty darn close. Now, that's considering the fact that I did my highway run during a Saturday rush hour. The Honda BRV's cabin is mostly made out of durable materials, which is already expected in this MPV class. However, this top-spec BRV-V gets some added soft-touch materials to help make your daily drive comfortable. Now, case in point, we get black leather seats here that also have a red strip in terms of design, and the steering wheel is also leather-wrapped. However, this wheel only adjusts for tilt though. It doesn't really telescope, so yeah, that's a bit of a bummer there. But at least the steering wheel comes with audio controls and a pair of really responsive paddle shifters. So I got to test out these paddle shifters quite extensively in the week that I've been driving the BRV, and I can tell you that they are truly responsive. Now, as for the safety bits of this BRV, well, as you can see on your screen, we get a decent level of safety bits here, and it's decent enough to give this BRV a 5-star safety rating in the ASEAN NCAP. However, guys, I did notice that the instrument gauge cluster of this BRV doesn't come with an engine temperature gauge, which is something of, it's a typical trend already in these Japanese MPVs. Now, a second thing that I notice here is that the hazard button of the BRV is located on the right side of the steering wheel, and it's also circular in shape, and I kind of confuse it with an engine push start button. You see, I got confused with it when I first reviewed the BRV some years back, and I still get confused with it even up to now, because the actual engine start-stop button can be found here on the left side of the steering wheel. Now, as for the infotainment system of the BRV, well, this is a Kenwood head unit, and it has that aftermarket vibe to it. But fortunately, guys, it comes equipped with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and the image of a reverse camera. However, this 7-inch touchscreen looks kind of on the dated side, and if you need further evidence of that, Well, in order to connect your smartphone to this infotainment system, well, you'll have to use a data cable that can be found coming out from the glove box. And there's a second cable here that's labeled charger. So I guess this charger port is for your front passenger who wants to charge their device. Now, guys, this is functional. True, it will do the job, but it's also a bit on the dated side, as I said. Now, below that infotainment system, we have here a fully automatic climate control setup, and below that we have a couple of cup holders which I will subject to my Clean Canteen test. Now, let's see if it passes my Clean Canteen test. Easily. Guys, kudos to Honda for giving us a pair of cup holders that easily passes my 600 ml Clean Canteen test. Now, below the shifter, guys, we also have a manual handbrake here. But if you'll notice, we don't get a center armrest. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer, at least for me, because I like to drive on the highway at a relaxed pace with my left hand on the steering wheel and my right arm parked on the center armrest, just cruising, just relaxing. But apparently I can't do that in the BRV, so I'll have to use my right hand holding the wheel while I park my left elbow on the elbow rest found on the door cards. Now, speaking of the door cards, guys, well, at least we get a padded red leather elbow rest here, which helps me to relax on those long drives. Now, as for the entire cabin, guys, as I said, it's mostly made out of durable materials. These are hard plastics. The dashboard is hard plastic. The door cards, hard plastics, guys. Which is, yes, it's already kind of expected already in this MPV category. So really, guys, no complaints there. Getting in and out of the second row of the Honda BRV is pretty easy, guys, because surprisingly it is on the low side despite having a 201mm ground clearance. Now, as for the absolute space itself, well, the BRV is one of the narrower MPVs out there. So, yeah, it's a bit narrow here, guys. Although, if you're just two adults here in the backseat, the second row, it's going to work. It's going to be quite comfortable. But if you put a third one in the middle, well, it's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze. Now, as for the leg room and the headroom here, well, I do get a good amount of leg room. I get around 8-9 inches even of legroom here. Oh, by the way, I'm 5'6", and this is my driving position. So yeah, around 8-9 inches of knee room and a good 7-8 inches of headroom. So in terms of the length, it has really not much of an issue, but for the width, it would be best or most ideal to keep it to just 2 passengers. Now, for the amenities, guys, well, we do get a row of AC vents here on the ceiling. We have our own blower control there. But other than that, guys, there's no other amenities here. We don't even get a center armrest, or we don't even get USB charging ports. The third row seat is surprisingly comfy and spacious. As I said, guys, I'm 5'6", and I still get an inch of knee room here and around 3 good inches of headroom. Now, I also like the fact that the AC vents can reach all the way here to the third row seat. So yes, your passengers here will be cool and comfortable. You can also recline the seats a little bit more to give you a more natural position. So yes, even the people who are seated here in the third row seats, as long as you're 5'6" or smaller, well, you will have a comfortable time here at the back, even on a long drive. Alright guys, we are now driving the Honda BRV V CVT, and I will have to admit to you all guys that I am going to totally contradict myself in this video. You see, I got to drive the BRV some years back, but that was just a short test drive, while this time around I got to drive this BRV for close to a week now. So there are some stuff that I said in my first video of the BRV that I will totally contradict. Actually, guys, I was just a starting car reviewer back then, and now, well, I've reviewed over 200 cars. So now I'm using like that level of experience that totally changed my driving impressions of the Honda BRV V CVT. First up, the sitting position. You see, in my first review of the BRV, I mentioned that the sitting position was pretty high and the visibility was also good. Well, that's the first thing that I will contradict. You see, driving this thing around, well, the BRV's sitting position is on the low side, and the dashboard is also mounted quite high while the window sills are pretty low. So that gives me the feeling that I'm driving a wagon, a station wagon, instead of an MPV/SUV. Now, the visibility looking forward, it's decent, but not as good as the other MPVs that I've already tested. In fact, the forward visibility feels more like that of a sedan rather than an MPV. Now, one of the things that surprised me with this Honda BRV is the steering feel. Well, I shouldn't probably be surprised, guys, because this is a Honda, and Honda really knows a thing or two when it comes to tuning their steering feels. See, this BRV has a good steering feedback, guys. I love it. It has a well-balanced steering. It's pretty sharp for an MPV. It quickly responds to my steering inputs. And, well, it's... guys, it handles like a sporty SUV or a sports sedan. I love it. I love the sharpness of the steering feel of this thing. I mean, you could drive around corners like Max Verstappen when you're driving the Honda BRV. Now, when it comes to the acceleration performance, well, I did say in my past video that the BRV felt anemic, that the CVT was making a lot of engine noises, but it doesn't really give you the speed. And here's the thing, guys. It turns out that test drive unit that I drove back then probably just needed an Italian tune-up. Because, well, since I've had this BRV, I gave this car an Italian tune-up, and wow, guys, this thing now has pretty good levels of acceleration to it. It even feels a little bit jumpy. That when you're starting off from a standstill, yeah, see, the response of the CVT is pretty good down low. And when you accelerate, even if you're in normal mode, like what we're doing now, see, it picks up pace pretty quickly. Now, that really surprised me, guys. Oh, what more if you pop it in sport mode? I'm in sport mode now. So yes, you get the engine noises, but you also get that hurried response from the car. You get the car going really well. And when you use the paddle shifters are really responsive, guys. I love it. You know, I use this on the highway, and I use the paddle shifters, and I played around with the sport mode. And guys, yeah, after giving this an Italian tune-up, oh yeah, this BRV, man, this can deliver. This can deliver like no other MPV that I've tested. In fact, this drives so much better than all of the other MPVs that I've tested. And it's pretty crazy, guys. One of the weak points that I've encountered with this vehicle during the week I've been testing it out is the NVH. You see, I took it out on the highway, and the NVH levels is not really that good. On the highway, it allows a lot of highway wind noise to come into the cabin. And when you're going over like uneven roads, some potholes and stuff like that, well, the BRV lets the bumps go inside the cabin. You could really feel it, guys. The ride is also on the firm side, so at least that part of my first review of the BRV is accurate. Yeah, the ride is pretty firm, and you could feel all the bumps and all that. But I love that the steering of this thing also transmits good feedback on the road conditions, so it makes you feel more connected to the car in a way. Overall, guys, this Honda BRV is truly engineered to be that of a driver's car. Now, this is for somebody who has a family and who loves to drive. If you'd like to if you'd like to drive like Max Verstappen on the road, on the twisties, well, it turns out you can do that with the Honda BRV. Now, the good thing here is, well, if you're just commuting and doing a relaxed drive, the BRV also comes with an eco coach, an eco meter, which helps you maximize on its fuel economy. Now, while its NVH and cabin materials might not be the best in the category, but guys, when it comes to its actual driving performance, this BRV will surely put a smile on your face. The Honda BRV is a surprisingly engaging MPV to drive, especially in sport mode. Now, it may be a family vehicle, but it is also imbued with the racing DNA that Honda is known for. Now, it may not be the newest or the biggest MPV in its segment, but it has one of the best driving dynamics and fuel economy in its class. And for the family man who loves to drive, that, my friends, is what matters the most. Thanks for watching.